this particular thing here looks like it's electronics, and it is. Looks like it might be 2 meter stuff, but it's not. The hint there is that 2 meters is going to go right through this little plastic dish.
Wow.
So this has got to be something down in the audio range. Well, it's not, kind of. Ultrasound is from 20 kilohertz up to about a million hertz. And, but most of the bug population in the world only talks from about 20 kilohertz, which we can't hear unless there's somebody very unusual in the room. You can do that. How far can you go up?
About 40.
You're going to want to plug your ears when I turn this thing on. I mean, let me know if you have a little pain. When I started fooling with this stuff, I went to Dr. Segebrek after I was fiddling with this stuff for about 6 months to get my ears checked just in case, right? But evidently he said, well, you might get a little heating in the ears, but he said, well, for the most part, you're not going to hear it. You don't. When you go to the dentist, he says he asked me how much power I was putting out, and I said that's less than what the dentists use, so it's not really a concern. Now, if you want to go below audio, go down to infrasound, which is 20 hertz. Sometimes they vary it a little bit. 20, 30 hertz down. Then you get run into some danger points. 7 hertz. If somebody is epileptic, you can start a fit. So I thought to myself, well, probably it's a good idea that I don't mess around with infrasound down at the bottom. Now, if we talk about species and where they're talking, which was my interest in doing this, species from, well, particularly elephants. Elephants talk at about an average of about 7 hertz. And they have certain little, limited vocabulary of things combined, however, that seem to get the message from where they are to as much as 10 miles away, okay, on the African plain. So Segebrek asked me, he said, well, this is really nice. He says, you're listening to those bugs that we can't hear. He said, but can you make me one that would be for elephants? I said, well, I'd have to have a dish that's bigger than you can get in the airplane. Because it's much wider. So a dish for ultrasound, I mean, infrasound is going to be really, really long. You think about that low frequency. But the distance, the speed of sound, it's going to stay fairly constant. So that means you get a really, really long bandwidth there. Now, if you get up to around 40, 50 kilohertz and you go up a little higher, at 50 kilohertz, the bandwidth, I mean, the width of one cycle is about a third of an inch. So that means theoretically, if I have a dipole, I don't even need all of this if it's just a little dipole. The problem is the signals are fairly weak, so you let it come into a dish like this. So the signal comes in, it hits the dish, bounces off in the focal point. When they're coming from a distance, let's assume the lines are straight, 50 feet away, they look like they're pretty straight. Well, you think about looking at the moon as an example. If you look at the moon, what does it look like? About that big to you in the sky? Some nights it looks bigger, really full moon nights. So if you look at the distance from that and bringing it all the way to you, the difference between this side of the dish and the other side of the dish is going to be, it's going to be parallel. That's my point. It looks like it's all coming in parallel. All reflects off that, and then focuses in on the sensor. Now, these little sensors have a little tiny dish inside here, but the mesh is fine enough that it doesn't interfere with a third of an inch wavelength coming through. I'll throw these up and you can just pass around and look at the bottom there and just pass it along. And so that's the sensor. Now the receive sensors, the equivalent circuit for them, ironically, is exactly the same as crystal filters. So I haven't tried it yet, but I'm thinking if you want to make a crystal filter, and some of them like the SS40, I know Dan's seen that, might be kind of funny. It might come fun rather. It might be funny too. To look at the how that goes together and the way he did that in that SS40 with a, and that was going to be at an audio. Well, no, that was for the RF frequency that he had on that before he downloaded the 40 meter signal. So it would be interesting on this to use the equivalent circuit and use a number of these with different values to see if you could make a really neat quasi-crystal filter, but down here at 50 kilohertz. Haven't done that yet, but it might be interesting, yeah.
Is it piezoelectric?
Yes. Yes.
It's piezoelectric?
Yeah. They don't usually refer to it that way, but it's piezo, yeah. And you can, and just like a regular crystal, you can kind of shape them and sand them down a little bit to get the characteristics a little different. They're fairly sharp. They're too sharp for a really good voice signal. And so when I tune these, you have a little pot in here that tunes from 20 kilohertz to about 40 kilohertz. And then that's a VFO in here. And then it goes into a 602 mixer or a 612 mixer, which you can't get in dual inline packages anymore. Yeah, but you can get a little socket that fits on there and then take the smaller 602 that is an S5 or an SO5 surface mount and stick it on the glue right there and then just hit it with a little heat gun and you can get that on here. So they still have the same functionality, it's just 2 steps instead of 1. A little socket going from the big size through holes down to the little one that's half that size at the most, and just with a little glue on there and then a little heat gun, get the fall flows together. So, and I did that with the last one of these I built, worked just fine. So we've got this thing coming in, and then it gets into here, and there's some gain in the front, because these signals are fairly low level, so there's some gain in the front, RF gain. Then there's a filter at the input frequency. Okay, there's a VFO. The VFO tunes, so effectively the filter is set at its set. The filter comes out at the output and is a low pass filter, so that what you got coming in could be at 40 kilohertz. The oscillator's at 42, so you mix those two, and what comes out is 2 kilohertz. So all that's really doing is like any direction conversion receiver. You're bringing in the RF, in this case the ultrasound, you're bringing it down to audio, and what you're hearing is the signal narrowed, just the audio of what's coming on at that 40 kilohertz frequency. So it's just a direct conversion receiver, one mixer. So there's not very many parts in it. Now to play around with these some, I use a signal generator, and then I also fiddle around with, we did these down at 4-state QRP about 4 years ago. Could have been 5 now, I can't remember. One side has a little receiver, the other side has a transmitter. And I plug this in, put a key on it, and so then we had round robin CW practice in a room here from 3/4 of the room where the guys were, and they could send back and forth and practice their code as if you had a receiver. Now this little guy here, I'm just going to set him up like this. I'm turning it this way a little bit because this signal is too strong normally, but it'll still pick it up a little bit. And this is a speaker that has a power supply in it that boosts the signal, because that's only for earphones and it's quite low. So I just stick that in and turn it on. So when I transmit it, it'll come out over here. And I'll put it this way, so what you're hearing is the audio, and I hope you don't hear the original signal too. Okay, let's see here, make sure I got it in the right pocket here. First of all, before we turn that on, let's turn this guy on.
Powering on. Welcome to Alltech Lansing.
Okay. Now, you hear the rush, the noise? Now this particular filter in here is set up for about 8 kilohertz bandwidth. The reason for that is I can tune 8 kilohertz up and down between 20 kilohertz and 40 kilohertz, where the bats like to talk, but they don't always talk in the same spot. So you want to be able to
Adjust.
yeah, I'm tuning across the band. Now there's not much in here of interest right now. Anybody got a pacemaker? There you go. Now hold it going. Now, what's happening is you're hearing those keys hit each other. The keys are resonant circuits, because, or like a pipe. When they're hit against each other, those things, the key is vibrating, it's putting off ultrasound, and that's what you were hearing. Now, also, this would be really great for ladies who want to make sure their skin is nice and soft. Now, the reason I'm saying it, for old bird like me, watch this. Those are rough ants.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Now, I don't think I have one with me. Maybe I brought one with me. Components.
Figures.
Oh, maybe others.
Gee. Maybe that's what I needed. I could hear the TV.
Now, they didn't get the, anybody have, I thought I had put a little resistor because it has, different things sound differently when you drop them. I'm looking for a little, anybody have a little,
How about the bag? Rub it together. I'll begin.
see, I must have shaved, right? Go shave again, dear. Okay.
I'm picking up a little bit, but not much.
Anybody have a little tiny tube of some sort?
It's picking him up.
What is that?
Change.
Throw it up here. Give him. Thanks, Bill. That's too hard. Penny?
What does a flashlight sound like?
Oh, what was that? Oh, excellent. Excellent.
What is that?
Is that you?
You have change in your pocket?
I wonder what that is.
Maybe
Bill?
that's him
Keys.
grinding inside.
What are you doing back there? Bud, what do you got? Keys? Oh, yeah. But I wanted to find something like a resistor because on a hard bench, this is too soft. On a hard bench at home, I drop a resistor. Doesn't matter what the value is. You know those quarter-watt resistors are about maybe a half-inch, quarter-inch thick. The lead, you drop it on there, and it rings. The reason it rings, it's about the length and size and the cavity of about 1/3 of an inch. And you drop it, and it goes boing, 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 boing. So it's resonating. Everybody's having fun, isn't that great? Okay, let me see. This is the people talking. No, that was too dull.
You can hear it.
That's the spring inside.
Yeah.
There we go. APJ. There we go. Now I have another one here. right? AC0 NFL? Is there an NFL in here? So anyway, it's kind of screwball because it doesn't really have the two paddles on it. Now if I change, this is a fixed frequency on the transmitter here, so if I want to change the frequency, I've got to change the VFO over here, right? So that because it's picking up a little lower than you want the tone to be. And this would be just like tuning your VFO when you're trying to tune in tone, right? Saying that a little farther away there. Wow, look at the speaker.
His dog's next door got that car.
Yes? We actually were crazy enough with about 6 guys in the room doing that about 4 years ago from in the corners it would echo around. Now let me see if I can find any
Ballast. It's picking up the ballast.
yeah.
What about counting it through that wall there, listening to people talking next door?
Some other stuff up there too, isn't there?
Yeah, the starter.
That was pretty better.
What's over here?
Yep.
Oh!
What is that thing sensitive?
Rub your fingers inside there. Rub your belly. Okay.
That is.
Another one.
I need that at the house so I can listen to my TV. Turn the sound down. Very cool. Picking up the losing my head.
Yeah, right. So anyway, you get the idea.
That is
So it's just weird, it's kind of fun. By the way, if you take this in your kitchen, I recommend not putting it into the water, but so let's say you got a, normally I would have earphones on instead of this thing, but I thought it would work better in the room for you better here. Turn the faucet on, and then you get there, and if you go just across the faucet and it's not hitting the water spout, you pretty much don't hear it. And then when you hear it, you're right on the water, it's noisy and its frequency is up and down the band. Here.
There's the water coming.
Oh, cool. Now let me get across that.
Sounds like a waterfall.
Yeah, I was too close to it because it's too focused on about POV. Now watch as I go across it. Now, what are some of the practical applications of this? What was that?
No, artificial intelligence. It's probably his bottle.
Good.
Probably picking up the, got a
What's my feet?
Huh?
What's my feet on the ground?
Oh.
Okay. So you
That thing is sensitive. Isn't that the one you use for picking up bugs and stuff?
yeah, what I did was the first one I built, it was I took it outside. It was August about 5 years ago, and I walked around the neighborhood. And I was hearing various things, and my neighbors think I'm kind of eccentric. So I'm walking along, and I've got this thing, and I'm doing this, and I'm looking around, and I'm going, they said, "What the heck are you doing?" My neighbor came came out, and I said, would you like to hear what your lawn sounds like? I said, what are you talking about? They said, well, there are lots of creatures in your lawn.
Thought you went off the deep
I
end.
gave her the headphones. She put them on. She walked about 3 feet into the garden and started doing this. And I'm not going in my yard ever again. And then I stood out in the driveway. We have Harvard Road on the west side near Walkeroo. People drive too fast, and it's usually SUVs with somebody talking on a cell phone.
Yeah.
And there have been some accidents along that road. So I was out there with this, looking around, and I wait till they go by, and then I do that. You know.
They thought you were
Yeah. And then I would actually track their wheels, and I hear the whack, 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 whack. As the two wheels pass, whack, whack, whack. You know, you got two wheels on the ground, and they just hold it steady. Whack, whack. And so that was kind of interesting. And then I started looking around at various trees, and in August I was walking around the neighborhood and I noticed certain trees, when I got to them, they were going, that's what I was hearing, the headphones. I said, what's that? Of course the neighbors, what's he doing? Turns out, I started looking up on the internet, turns out all of these bugs and species all talk at different parts of this ultrasound frequency.
Wow.
They're bugs, and now the ones you and I can hear, we can hear crickets.
Yeah.
And what's the one that we hear late in the August when they go?
Cicadas.
Cicadas. Cicadas. Now there's some brands of cicadas that species that operate at a higher frequency. But if you take one of the cicadas and you pin them down and you look at it with a spyglass or with a magnifying glass, you'll notice they're tied on the back. They're kind of like, I guess they're kind of like our arms, but they're back here. They've got spikes all the way along there. And what they do when they get back there, they rub them against themselves. And what that is, anybody got a comb on them? It's like rubbing a pocket comb. And so that's how they make that noise. Now there are others that don't hear very well, but have really sensitive fingers, and so they have pads on their fingers, front and back, and the way they communicate, and they've recorded messages going back and forth. We don't know what they mean or what the code is, but they'd be on the branches there, and you could certain codes would attract two of the same species from different parts on the plant or the tree because of their motion in walking along the leaves and the branches would vibrate down the branches, which is coax cable too. It's a cable too. It's a communications line. So that's their party line. And so they know how to get together, see? So it's just fascinating. So I've been starting to collect what bugs are at what frequency and that sort of thing, but just, which is fun. Now the best thing is on this one, and then I'll round it up because we're getting a little late here. This one right at the mid-range here works great for bats. There are a couple of people in town that have bat houses. Stan Roth, anybody know Stan Roth?
Yeah.
The rest of you don't know him? Okay. He was a biology teacher at Lawrence High for years and years and years, and now his son's a biology teacher out at Free State. Well, I called him up one day, and I called your neighbor up one day, and I said, Stan, would you like to hear bats? And he says, you can't hear bats. And he says, I've been studying them for years. I said, well, come on over, bring a bottle of wine with you. We're going to your guy's house. And so the three of us sat out there. I had 3 of these. We were all sitting there with a glass of wine and these headphones on at 7:30 as the dusk came. And pretty soon, and then Stan just got this great big grin on his face. He'd never heard him in his life. And now he's hearing these guys talk to each other. It's kind of freaky. Whoa, this kind of thing. They were at tree level, right up towards the top of the trees, skimming along there. Can't see them very well. They're pretty quick or they're pretty hard to see. But they were making a racket when you tune up into the 40 kilohertz band. And I'll end with this thing here. I read one paper recently that said these guys, these biologists or had to be a discipline of biology, I would think, one of those. They put microphones out along each side of a creek bed in a rural site. And over time, after taking data, they realized the bats were most successful and would congregate at the creek only when there wasn't any wind and when the stream was nice and smooth. And versus when the wind's up, what would happen is the surface of the water is agitating. Well, when that happens, where's your signal going to go? It's not going to come off the ground that the bats are shooting their ultrasound out. If on a flat surface, incoming angle will go up at the same angle going out, right? If it comes down and the wave water is choppy, that signal hits here and disperses, and very little of it can be heard at the other end, and so the bats can't feed. So they go away and they come back on. It's really interesting. Yeah, all kinds of stuff like that. So, and that occurred to me that this might be an interesting project, not related to this, but I mentioned that these are all just dual inline chips, right? Like 8-pin chips. Finally, one of the 602 mixer that I've got in here, that's the last one I put in, and you can't get them anymore.
$2 a piece and through-hole packages.
Where?
Got several sources. I'll let you know.
Yeah, okay, but they're really getting scarce.
You can still get them.
Interesting. Volume, and I don't need volume, is that you buy, I think I mentioned this at the beginning, you buy a little socket, you plug it in with the through hole, and then on the top side it has a pattern for the smaller size feet of the surface mount device. And so then you put a little gook on there, which includes the solder, put it down there, and so it's on the pattern, and then you use a little heat gun and it just solders it right on there. So that's the way that function works. So if we could get maybe at some point in time, if we could get ourselves a little video or something that we could show at the club that could show that surface mounting process. Right now, at my 75-year-old eyes, I had a great big magnified on there, and I put that thing on there, and I sneaked a little on all 8 leads, and it worked fine. But with the paste and the heat gun, it's just really easy. So that might be kind of interesting. So anyway, this is just one of those things that kind of went off in one direction, and I had fun with it. So any questions? Yeah.
Is it direct conversion?
Yeah, comes in, let's say, comes in at 40 kilohertz, which is the center frequency of this guy. Then when it comes in, one of the things I did with the piezo, here it is, here's the piezo. I put in parallel with it a 6.8 millihenry choke. And what that does is cause the bandwidth, instead of to be sharp, it flattens it out. So that this thing now is going to see maybe 10 kilohertz instead of half kilohertz. And so that frequency, whatever it is coming in, you tune the VFO that mixes with it. That comes out the other side of that 602 mixer. You can get a beat note, or you can tune it to 0. 0 isn't very useful. If it doesn't, then you don't get anything. But you can get maybe your 400 hertz, or you can tune it to differences, 600. You can tune it to the top or the bottom. Or I suppose if you wanted to, you could just do the mixer and filter such it would only tune to the top side or upper side band or lower side band. But with this stuff, you don't really care. And the idea there is to pick up most of these species. Sometimes like some of the bugs. So I called this city last week when I noticed they were doing something with ash beetles, and I told her what I was doing, and she says, "Well, are you qualified?" And I said, "Do you want to hear them?" "Well, no, we're dealing with ash." I said, "Okay." I just said, "Fine." I gave up. Maybe I can hear, maybe or not. If I can, I think I'll publish it in one of those letters to the editor in the Journal World. I hear ash beetles.
Yeah.
I'm going to try. I won't say any more than that. and then they'll come to college. So, you know, that's just the way life works.